guys, my name is Akshata, and just like most of the young generation people, I'm one of those, and someone who keeps struggling with anxiety and distress situations. I'm very excited to be talking to Dr. Mansi, and so is Dr. Digdi. And I've read some incredible stuff about you guys, the articles, and how you guys have navigated so many people's life. So I am very excited, and I would love for you guys to kind of give us a gist of, you know, how, irrespective of the age factor, how is one really supposed to deal with anxiety? Over to Mansi.
Thank you so much. So I think it's very important first to figure out that you are actually having anxiety or you're just going through normal day-to-day stress. So there's a big difference between the two. Stress most of the times happens because of some extrinsic situation. For example, you have too much of work to do. You have to multitask. You are living a hustler's life. Or let's say you are doing something, you're supposed to do something which is not your normal schedule. You have to acquire a new skill to do that. All these things makes you feel overwhelmed, right? Which means you are stressed. Anxious or anxiety, on the contrary, is something which is more intrinsic. Like, you have a belief system, for example, I'm not good enough. Okay. Now that is making you feel anxious because it is coming into every spheres of your life, be it relationship, profession, friendship, everywhere. So first you need to navigate what is stress, what is anxiety. Other difference between the two is stress is always short term. It will be there, let's say, till the time the stressors are actually there. Eventually, let's say, the stressors have been addressed. कोई सबमिशन हो गया है, अप्रेजल हो गया है, but then still I am feeling that pain in my chest, some tingling kind of a sensation, not able to breathe properly. I can feel the body very, very tight, and my entire left side of the body feels paralyzed at times. Or there is a feeling of heart attack, right? There's a constant feeling of heart attack. You are getting into the zone of, getting to the hospital. Heart attack ho gaya, kuch ho gaya. It's a sense of losing out completely. That means it's anxiety. Stressors सब खत्म हो गए, फिर भी ये वाली sensations हैं. It means it's anxiety. You need to go to the psychiatrist and psychologist to figure it out. What do you think, Deepti, about this?
Hello. I think you put it really well. I think there's a difference, and some stress is good. Eustress and there's a difference. There's eustress, which is good stress, and distress, which is not so helpful. But then there's anxiety. What I think is really important is when we're feeling anxious, we feel like we're losing control. And I think today, the world that we all live in, we like that sense of control. And every time we're spiraling, that loss of control is something that triggers us further and then can keep us in a loop.
Absolutely. Yeah. I do have a very important question to ask. Irrespective of the age factor, if you talk about a decade ago, the term anxiety was not really existing. It was non-existent to be precise. So, the more access we have got to media, the more not really people being well read. I think people have been well read. Now it's quite trending to be a well read person. But in the last decade, you have seen this word getting more highlighted. Why this word didn't really exist 10 years ago, and how were people really coping up with? And I would love for Dr. Deepti to answer that.
You can call me Deepti, by the way. I think, first of all, I think smartphones have come in the last 10 years, and children have access to smartphones. So that's, if I look at our practice, we're seeing a lot more kids where there's self-harm, where if you look at suicide rates, they've gone up significantly. So I think the times have changed, and I don't think that anxiety wasn't there before. I think it was very much there, but we had support systems. We had things in place to help with that. Today, with smartphones, with other things, with social media, in fact, there was a British study that showed that girls who spent 4 hours on social media were 5 times more likely to be depressed than a person who didn't spend time on social media. So there's so much that we compare ourselves to. Like Dr. Mansi said, we have to, like, if I feel any intrinsic sense of inadequacy, that is highlighted today by the external world, whether it's beauty standards, what we should be doing, everyone should be earning this much, everyone. So there's so much focus on how our lives should be that we're losing that connection with ourselves at a very, very deep level. So although we're connected on one level, we are very, very disconnected at our core.
But do you think it has turned slightly better if we talk about the percentage after COVID, since COVID really made us realize that what as people we are losing is a connection on a deeper level? Because when we are at home, all we had was our parents and our grandparents, and whether you are in a joint family or you are in an independent family, we were able to realize what we had missing was a connection within our own family, and the stress and that I could say anxiety of losing our loved ones. Do you think people have performed better according to the demographics since 2020, after COVID, after pandemic?
What do you think?
I think people have definitely, they are more connected, right? I have seen a very big transition. People never used to talk about hobbies. Specifically those who are in the corporate sector, hustling between everything. They have a side hustle, एक job चल रहा है, side hustle में और भी revenue चल रही है. But I think now they know that there is contribution of everything towards their mental well-being. And thank God to social media somewhere, and of course smartphone technology, that we know what are the contributors. For example, I have clients who are saying that, should I go for pottery class? Why not? So it's not only connection with your family and friends, people are also investing in understanding the importance of self-connection. Post-COVID, another trend that I have seen is they want to invest in self-care. They know the concept of self-love. So I think, and just to answer your earlier question, anxiety was there 10 years back also. We have the name now. पहले क्या होता था? घबराहट हो रही है, राइट? फैमिली को बोला बहुत घबराहट हो रही है मुझे, एग्जाम के पहले एंजाइटी हो रही है, मुझे घबराहट हो रही है. पेरेंट्स बोलते कुछ नहीं, एग्जाम हो जाएगा, सब कुछ ठीक हो जाएगा, forget about it. It was there 10 years back. It is there today also. But definitely, the good thing is awareness is there. The bad thing is there. Too much of awareness is there. Now we get patients saying मुझे एंजाइटी और डिप्रेशन है, चाहे वो नहीं है पर वो सेल्फ डायग्नोस्ड है. My younger one was just 8.5 now. Few days back she was like, Mama, I think I'm going through anxiety. I was like, where did you listen this word? Because I ensure I'm not using these words at home. No, my friends were also talking that they feel anxiety, they feel anxiousness, they feel that their hands are sweating and all those things. Too much of awareness. As kids, sometimes इतनी awareness की ज़रूरत भी नहीं है. So just to answer, 10 years back, it existed. Now we have more awareness, better coping mechanism. So yeah. Do you want to add something to it?
No, I think you said it perfectly.
Thanks.
But right now, since you mentioned your younger kid and the child being 8.5, you said that you try to kind of make an environment at home that you're not mentioning the term anxiety or depression. Do you think there is a taboo or a stigma around the fact that anxiety and depression is something related to you can say negative emotions? Do you think like that?
Not at all. But I think before 10, they should not know certain things, right? And my concern is because, so I have 2 daughters. My elder one is 15. She understands the difference between these 2 things, and we talk about it openly. But a kid who is below 10, they don't understand. They don't have that mental efficiency to understand the difference between stress, anxiety, depression. Right? So sometimes it's important to protect them but make them aware about it, so that they're not using these words like loosely. Right? That is, awareness in the right way at the right time is important, and they are not at all taboo. I am in this awareness campaign. It's not at all a taboo. Rather, you should be proud of the fact that you have certain emotions which you are not able to handle. Please go ahead, talk about it. It's just like, अगर बॉडी में कोई इशू है, फीवर है, बताओगे ना. माइंड में अगर कुछ घबराहट हो रही है, एंजाइटी हो रही है, बताओ उसको. राइट.
Even though I am 24 years old, I grew up around people born in the 90s. So my mentality is kind of more, I'm able to relate to more people born in the 90s, or I could say 91, 92, 93, 94. And with that being said, I never really had a chance of, even though I'm 2000 born, I never really had that openness around my parents to actually talk about anxiety or say that I'm anxious. Because for them it was like, what are you talking about? It does not exist. You are going to perform so well. And I would say that did help me turn and become a very strong, mentally strong person. But did I have a negative impact of it growing up? That I had that way too masculine energy to kind of be around that, oh, I can take care of everything, oh, I can take care of myself emotionally, mentally, and kind of give myself that stability. Do you think now, looking at how parents were and how they are, have they become more aware to kind of make sure that the child knows when they are in distress situation? Is that changing?
Oh, definitely it's changing as parents are becoming a lot aware. They can observe these small things in their kids, right? Certain behavioral changes. For example, like we were talking about anxiety, intrinsic belief system. If your child thinks that I am not good enough, right? You can see that in the behavior of your child. What kind of behaviors are we talking about? Social withdrawals, right? You have people coming over at your place, they don't want to walk out of their room. So observe these behaviors rather than just saying or pushing them. Sit with them, talk to them, make them aware, and then understand how they can help them to improve it rather than saying avoid. These and masculine energies doesn't mean that you are not able to, you should not express. Masculine energies definitely means don't avoid, express it. Would you like to add to it, Dipti?
Yeah, I think 10 years ago, or at least when I was growing up, maybe there was not that much awareness around what's going on. I really applaud parents today. They take so much effort to actually educate themselves. And I have to say, with Gen Z, people are so, and your generation, people are so much more aware of, mental health. It's okay, it's normalized. In fact, at our practice, we have Gen Zers recommending their grandmothers that, it's helping me so much. Why don't you go for therapy? Which I think is a great and welcome shift that's happening. So I think the stigma, yes, it's there, and we are all here today talking about it openly, and that's what propels change. But I think it's important. We are moving in the right direction, and I think maybe people weren't equipped at that time. They did their best, and today people have a lot more tools, a lot more time, a lot more things that they can actually accommodate their child's needs and what they're experiencing, etc.
I think on that note, it is a marvelous growth for our country. We are moving in a much more aware, generation. People who have accessibility towards media, and people who are well read, and making sure that the kids do have the right kind of base and support, which is excellent. And now I'll be moving on to a few questions that I've prepared for you guys. Sorry, I couldn't really get a paper. I had to write everything down on a notepad. So my first question to both of you is, what is anxiety really? Many people confuse anxiety with stress and tension. And how do you define the difference between the two or the three terms that truly exist today?
So, I think in the beginning, that's what I was trying to mention. Stress, anxiety, symptoms are quite overlapping. The differentiator is when you are still Anxiety में you can feel the physiological body changes. Stress में आपको सिर्फ nausea, heaviness in your head, headache, ये सारी चीज़ें होंगी. But when you can feel the frequency of panic attacks have increased, you can feel breathlessness quite often. You can also feel the left side of the body. I'm again and again saying left side of the body because it attacks the left side of the body only. Pain in the chest, heart attack kind of a feeling. These are all anxiety. They need to be addressed. They are happening even when the stressors, the reason of stressors are not there. So that's the main difference between the two.
I think she explained it beautifully in the beginning what the differences are.
Would you like to add anything else to it?
I think you feel a sense of loss of control when there's stress. It's like she said, it's external. So I know I need to do this, I need to do that. But when it's anxiety, there's everything can be fine, but internally I'm losing control, and that feeling becomes very, very like you can't focus. You can't. There's a lot of dysregulation happening.
On that note, how would you define one is supposed to have control of a situation when they are losing control? Like you said, people seem to lose sense of the time they are in or the situation they are in. We kind of lose control of the circumstances we are in. How to gain quick, how to have quick assessment of the surroundings that we are in and put your mind in a way that, okay, I can get out of this. What would be the quickest way for a person to cope up with?
I think if you're having a panic attack, what you need to do is engage your five senses, because when we're acting anxious or when we're losing control, there's stress, cortisol being released into our bloodstream, we're in our mind a lot. So to bring our physical bodies back, to engage the five senses, touch something, smell something pungent like orange or cinnamon, listen to something, feel something with texture, and taste something like chocolate or something. So physically bring yourself back, because a panic attack can resemble a heart attack, and you need to bring yourself back into your physical body.
But not everyone is supposed to have sugar because we do not want to spike our glucose. But in that case, what one can have apart from gluten or let's say chocolate?
I mean, I said chocolate because I love chocolate, but you can have whatever you like, a dry fruit, a gluten-free biscuit, whatever.
Fair enough.
Along with the grounding technique that Deepti just mentioned, there is this beautiful eye movement, sensitive desensitization. So when you're stuck in the loop, anxiety happens when A is leading to B, C, D, and then jumping on the conclusion that I'm useless. I cannot do it. Right? So eye movement, sensitive desensitization is when you move your eyeballs to the extreme up, down, left, right, circular, anti-circular. What happens because of this is all the tangled thought in your mind, they get entangled. You can look it through. You are out of that loop. So first try grounding. If that doesn't work, try eye movement sensitive desensitization. These are in the moment, but anxiety won't go till the time you are not working internally on your subconscious mind. ये सब temporary treatments हैं. They are all SOS. If you have anxiety, you want to work on it, you need to get to the subconscious mind, identify the irrational beliefs, change them. Unlearn the old belief, learn the new ones.
So when we talk about, doing the grounding, my question actually kind of goes back to the whole circle of 10 years ago, when Indians have always been connected to the idea of yoga and spirituality and our shastras and our culture, irrespective of the religion. All our religions have taught us to be more human and connected to the Mother Earth, which is grounding. Do you see, because of the access that we have got to, we have got of media and different portals like news portals, and for them to kind of get a certain kind of viewership, they get us hooked onto these, us as viewers on these apps. Do you think, again, 10 years ago, it was simultaneously, I would say, less known factor, of having anxiety compared to today? Because as Indians, we were always connected to the idea of doing grounding and connecting our chakras. Do you think it can be all correlated?
Definitely, yes. That's why if you see, we are going back to basics, right? In these last, I think COVID actually brought awareness about Indian mythology. I'm not talking about religious and all things. I'm talking about spirituality, talking about Bhagavad Gita, Shastras you mentioned. Definitely, yes. When we talk about meditation, there is a concept of japa meditation. That's what chanting the same mantra again and again, again and again. We are going back to basics. 10 years back, what we were naturally taught to do, we are relearning it. It would be great if we can pass it to the, like you said, Gen Z. I have Gen Z kids who are talking about it and they are actually into it more than people like their grandmother and grandfathers, till the time you make sense and there's a scientific, logical reasoning behind it. And all the Shastras, if you get into the detail of it, psychology, modern psychology, spirituality, neuroscience, all of them are interconnected.
Absolutely. So, yeah, I mean, 10 years ago, we did not really have access to this kind of knowledge that we do have, but there are pros and cons of everything that exists in today's world. So, limitization to, tech, I think, can help people a lot. And thanks to our country and strict parents, that we are still connected to our roots in the bestest way possible. So I have next question for Dr. Dipti. You have spoken about your own experience with therapy. How did transactional analysis shape your journey to healing?
So I think when I was 19, I felt very ill, and my mom's a therapist, so she recommended that I sort of do personal development, go to therapy. I was in a very bad place, and I was only 19. I was very ill. I had to drop out of college for a year and all of that. And at that time, I really discovered. So she was using this type of psychology that was called transactional analysis. I started using it, and I realized it really changed. Like my perspective, I felt quite hopeless at that time, and that really changed to feeling hopeful, and also made me choose the career that I'm doing today. And so I think that if anyone can, I think the work that we do is really holding someone's hand when they're in pain and helping them see that they could, and I think that that's something that I am truly passionate about. So I'm really, really glad that I had that experience and that I could then have this passion for the work that I do today.
That's fantastic. That's amazing. The next question I have is for both of you. Today's generation is growing up differently with fewer opportunities for outdoor play and real world socialization. How does this affect emotional resilience?
You're saying limited to technology in maybe smartphone or computers, games and all. Definitely social isolation is the end result of it, which contributes a lot towards overall well-being. When we talk about overall well-being, there are certain parameters that contribute to it. These parameters are physical gym, which is any kind of a workout, mental gym. I think in last 2 days there have been a lot of breath work and everything have been covered up over here. So mental gym is a combination of breath work and more of progressive muscle relaxation and the other techniques. So I'm just giving the definition of overall framework wherein how socializing is also part of it. So gaining knowledge, socializing, which is human interaction, is equally important, right? So if you are just limited to in-room gaming technology, not going to help at all. In fact, a few days back, I was there for one of the conference wherein there was a professor from Harvard who was doing his research in AI. He himself said that there is one thing that over the period of long studies we have figured out, we cannot teach AI is empathy and compassion. And if you are not going out being with people, you will actually become technologically efficient and sound, low on empathy and compassion. So it's important to go out, interact with the human.
I, I think as human beings, we are social beings. We are wired for connection, like Dr. Mansi mentioned. And I think as children, when you go out and play, you learn the rules of socialization, like how to be friends, how to share, how to help someone when someone's fallen down. Last week, I was with my nephew at the playground. He was in a bad mood. Another sweet girl said, "Do you want to ride my cycle?" And then they were happy, and I think that is something you can't DM someone. I mean, you could, but I don't think it has the same effect. So I think there's nothing like socialization. Even being here and talking rather than being online makes such a difference. I love seeing clients in person, although I see them online as well. The feeling of in person is different. I think as human beings, we're wired for connection, social connection, and I hope we never ever replace that with tech.
I think by the time we're going to replace that, it's going to be 100 past years, we won't be existing, all of us, unless we replace our hearts. And there is new technology, kind of coming in the picture, and we are able to transform our lives to 150 years of us. But with that being said, we are kind of going back to the ways we were, simple joys of life, kind of connecting to what's really out there apart from human connections, helping one another, and just being there for everyone, irrespective of what you're gonna gain. Because not everything can be around the materialistic aspect of life, but just kind of evolving and kind of transitioning into this person who is out there, regardless of you not wanting to gain anything. Indeed. I have my next question for Dr. Mansi. Studies suggest that unstructured, adventurous play is crucial for a child's development. How does a lack of it contribute to anxiety in children and teens?
Unstructured way of playing, you're saying? I think again I will say before the age of 10 it should be unstructured, or maybe before 12, yeah, till the time they hit the teenage it should be unstructured. Let them be. You don't need to give them the structure way of play. Everything doesn't need to be structured.
Extracurricular activities, and you are going to be able to do, okay, that's when you finish your play and you come back to home, and then you have to have your snack, and then you get to work again. So do you think it's good for a child's mental health and their wellness to have a structure around their daily routine? That's the best way to kind of put it together.
Yeah, definitely yes. It is very important. In fact, there's a Chanakya Niti also when we talk about parenting. Chanakya Niti says 0 to 6 years, let them be. Like I was telling you, don't need to give any structure. Man se karne tujhe karna hai. 6 till 12 is when you have to give them the constitution of living, which is where the entire structuring of the day, having a routine, the importance of having the routine falls into the picture. Now, when you have that routine, when as a kid you learn it, your mind associates it. When your mind is associating the benefits of routine, it will flow freely. Another thing is, it's also self-discipline, right? Having a routine is self-discipline. That AI conference also said that one thing that benefits people, which AI again will not be able to benefit, is self-discipline. And the benefit of having self-discipline is mind has the structure to go ahead. The more space you give to your mind, it will just lose out. It will keep on thinking. So self-discipline helps you to tame your mind. So it's important to tell the kids after 6 what is the importance of routine. Rather than just, giving them the routine, make them understand the importance of having a routine.
With that being said, the kind of data that I'm seeing online of a lot of parents overseas as well, it kind of shows that a lot of parents from the very beginning, I'm talking with the people in England, let's talk about that. They put their children from the age of 3 or 4 in a way that, okay, the kid wants to become a footballer, and they'll start training the kid in a very sublime manner that, you know, you have to score that ball. Okay, then I'm going to give you a treat. But when we speak of not giving a structure to the kid up until the age of 6 and then giving them a discipline and a structure of life, how is a child supposed to navigate on its own that this is something I truly enjoy doing? Like when we give a structure to a child, we don't really know if the kid wants to become an artist, or a kid wants to become a tech savvy, or a kid wants to become a writer or a sportsman. How is a mother supposed to know what the child truly wants to do, which also helps him with or her with the mental health? How is a mother supposed to do that?
I think being rigid in any way is problematic. So I think it's okay to give them some space to choose what they want to do and not be too rigid about anything. And like Dr. Mansi said, with routine, even for adults, routine is very helpful because it gives you a sense of control. If I know I'm going to have a cup of coffee at 8 a.m., actually that will help me feel good. Like I'm looking forward to that ritual at 8 a.m. or looking forward to gym at 9 or whatever. I think what you're talking about is rigidity. If I think I want to, and that's, I would question the child or the parents' fantasy of, does this child, is the parent wanting to be a footballer, or is it for the child?
No, the child. Let's
But
say
the child doesn't know,
Yeah.
and they can change.
No, how is a mother supposed to figure, because we are giving discipline and teaching them discipline after the age of 12, that okay, you are going to wake up, go to school after the age of 6, like Dr. Mansi said. How is the mother supposed to navigate or read the child's energy that this is what my kid is truly inclined towards, whether it's reading books, like, you know, a lot of kids love the idea of, okay, mom, we are going to go to bed now, I think you're going to read me a book. That is so interesting. You know, for a lot of children it is fun, but some kids don't like that. How is a mother supposed to figure that room out, that this is something my kid truly enjoys doing? Because in such a competitive world we live in, kids do need a kind of an alignment towards what they really want to do after the age of 18. Do you think there's a way to kind of figure that out?
I don't think. Do you know at 24 what you really want to do?
Absolutely.
You do?
Yes.
That's great. But maybe not everyone knows that, and
Yes.
we're allowed to change careers, and you're allowed to change.
My mother didn't help me, so that's a drawback. I had to do my own research and kind of do the grounding to kind of find that path. But do I wish to make that mistake when I become a mother? No. Do I want to become a better, a reader of the room and kind of become a slightly more aware parent? Yes. But is there a way a person can read it? Analysis, like understand how a child is moving in what direction? Is there a
I
way
think
for
you'll
that?
have some understanding of it, what direction, but I think if you're rigid, then that's a problem, because it's okay to see what comes out of it and not put too much stress on yourself as a mother or the child, and see what comes out of it. And I think a lot of people in Gen Z change careers and change paths. I think what's more important is to tell them that if that doesn't work out, that's okay, and you can do something else, and building that resilience up for your child, then that's okay.
Resilience, yes, I think that is fantastic.
That will help you through, because we don't know what life is going to throw us.
Yeah, that is so important indeed. That
But
is so important.
do you have a different perspective?
No, it's the same perspective, but just to answer your question, to help the child navigate, just expose them. Expose them to weight. So when I said 0 to 6, no structure, that doesn't mean that the child is not doing anything. Expose the kid to various activities. By the time they are 6, 7, 8, you'll be able to navigate what my child is good at. For example, that football, they must have been able to navigate it. Then take them ahead in that thing, right? So exposure therapy works there.
Wow, that is fantastic. I mean, something I've never heard of. And like Dr. Deepti said, teaching a kid resilience, something which is not parents are able to teach their kids. Now parents are, but something a lot of people back in the day couldn't. I think it's so important. I have a question for both of you now. We often hear about the shift from play based to phone based childhood is reviving our minds, young minds. What changes are you seeing in your practice with children and parents who are coming?
I think with the rewiring, with a lot of tech, what's happening is there's a lot of addiction, or there's anxiety, or there's sleep deprivation, and there's a lot of self harm. I don't think ever before in a classroom that of 13-year-olds, people were actually open. Like a client would say that I know 5 other people who are self harming, and that's those are the stats now. So I think a lot of things are changing around that. I think when I was in school, I didn't know that many people, or maybe I didn't know that many people who were self-harming. I don't think there were that many people self-harming. So this is something you see. There's a lot more stress on looks, especially I think young girls. Once you hit puberty, those are a lot of changes I'm seeing, and I think that's because of social media standards of beauty. I was talking to a dermatologist last week who was telling me that she has girls as young as 11, 12 asking for fillers and things like that because they want to look a certain way. And my heart goes out because I think we're held to a certain standard. That's the other thing. And I think relationships are changing. So parental relationships are changing. People are seeing more blended families coming in. So these are some of the changes that I'm seeing because of tech and stuff at my practice.
I absolutely agree with Deepti. I think body image issues are one of the very big things that are causing self-harm, a lot of traumatic childhood, which they were not able to navigate then, but now when they are maturing, they can feel the impact of that traumatic childhood in their daily life. A lot of aspiration trap, we call it as, wherein you have so much of aspiration from yourself, you're being so unkind to yourself to meet up all the expectations of yourself along with others, right? You have to maintain yourself, you have to socialize, सब कुछ करना है, and at the same time you have to excel at your career, studies. So that aspiration trap is creating a lot of confidence related issues in an individual, which further contributes to anxiety. This is another pattern that I am seeing of late. And post COVID, of course, mental exhaustion because of too much of social media, be it any kind of social media platform, but mental exhaustion is another thing which is very, very common. And yes, ADHD. Again, after COVID, ADHD has been like this.
I'm still so confused about this term ADHD. Always getting confused whether do I have it or do I not have it? Or is there a way, the easiest, fastest way for any individual, irrespective of the age, to kind of know whether they have it or they don't have it? Is there a way?
There is definitely a way. You can go for the structural test, but it's very, in psychology, there are many things which are overlapping. So if you are too anxious as an individual, attention deficit will automatically happen because your mind is exhausted, right? So, but definitely go ahead for the test that psychiatrists and psychologists conduct to figure it out whether you have ADHD or not.
That is a great way. I think I definitely have to go for it tomorrow. So I do have last 2 questions for the two of you. Dr. Deepti, you're passionate about normalizing therapy. What are the best and the biggest, not the best, my apologies. What are the biggest barriers stopping people from seeking help, and how can we address them?
I think things are changing. I'm really happy to see the way things have changed post-COVID. I think a lot more people are reaching out and acknowledging. I think the barriers still remain, like, am I weak if I need help from a professional? Does that make me weak? I think for some people, affordability is a problem, and for that I would say there's great mental health services from anywhere from complimentary to whatever price point you're looking at. I think affordability is another huge thing. I think the third barrier today that I'm seeing, I see a lot more couples today. So I think the relationship dynamic itself, family structures are changing. And I really hope and pray that people will seek help for that, because then that's how the next generation and kids get affected when, and it's okay to normalize and say it's okay to go. So I think these are
When doctors like you two exist, I think therapy is going to be normalized. It has already begun. The journey has already begun, but it's going to go better in the coming months and years.
Yeah.
The last question I have is for Dr. Mansi. I'm going to make this super quick. You specialize in CBT. It's called cognitive behavioral therapy. My apologies if I'm not pronouncing it correctly. And mindfulness. Can you share some simple techniques to manage anxiety?
CBT is not that simple because you have to work with the therapist, but I will still put a very simple solution to it. And so let's understand mindfulness over here. It addresses the conscious mind, okay? It will not solve your subconscious issues. So mindfulness, like Deepti said, grounding technique. It can also be mindful walking, wherein you're just, every time you feel some turmoil is going within me, externalize your attention. All your sense organs are just in the environment. That is what mindfulness is. You can apply it while you are eating, mindful walking, mindful conversations with your family and friends, wherein you're just 100% absorbed in the moment. This is what mindfulness is. Cognitive behavioral therapy, I'll give you a very quick hack over here. Make it a habit. This is not a normal journal. It's just to quickly change your behavior over the period of time. Write down the situation, right? Some situation happened today. How did you react in that situation? The third column is how you wish to respond in future. So what is happening is, number one, the mind is getting consciously aware about the situation. So next time when you're in the same situation, mind knows कि मैंने लिखा था, and it will automatically pick up the new behavior, right? For example, and when you're writing the third column, ensure that you are writing positive affirming words over here rather than saying I am not doing this right now or I am not doing it at all. Write down I have stopped behaving like this. Next time, similar situation, I will first address my emotion, then respond to it. So this is what cognitive behavioral therapy is all. This is not what it is all about. It's a quick one that you can start doing it from today itself.
But is it something similar to journaling? Are we talking about journaling here, which is the basic technique people go for?
CBT is not journaling. That's why I said CBT ऐसे नहीं हो सकता है. You have to sit with the therapist to figure it out. Go to the irrational belief, find out the irrational belief, then work on it to make them rational for yourself. This is a different way of journaling. This is something that I have discovered to help my clients quickly. So
We have to become a client then. That's the best way.
You don't have to become a client then. It's just a quick hack that I wanted to share.
I mean, one question, right? Just do it. Please.
Myself आरके गुलाटी 72. मेरे को लोग प्यार से अब डॉक्टर हैप्पीनेस गुलाटी बुलाते हैं. 48 साल से 65 साल मैंने मेडिसिन ली, बीपी की, शुगर की, एंजाइटी की, डिप्रेशन की, इंसोमिया में. अब 8 साल से नहीं है. मैं जस्ट सिर्फ 4 सजेशन आपको दे रहा हूँ. 4 चार्ट. पहला अक्षर हिंदी का इज इक्वल टू क्रोध, क्रॉस लगा दो. खा इज इक्वल टू खुशी. मैं डॉक्टर मानसी सारी दुनिया को खुश करूँगी. बच्चे का नाम लिख दो. और हिंदी का जब वो सुबह जाए पढ़ने लगे वो पेज देख ले, जब होमवर्क करे वो पेज देख ले. अब हिंदुस्तान में तो हिंदी चलेगी और वर्ल्ड को मैंने सिखाना है. 2 ही पहले अक्षर इंग्लिश के हैं. ए इज इक्वल टू एंगर, क्रॉस, बी इज इक्वल टू ब्रेन. मैं डॉक्टर हैप्पीनेस गुलाटी अपने ब्रेन को हमेशा हैप्पीनेस में रखूँगा. थर्ड चार्ट इज हैप्पीनेस इन एवरीथिंग. फैमिली की फोटो लगा दो. फोर्थ चार्ट इज डॉक्टर. आपके अंदर भी एक डॉक्टर है, बच्चे की भी है. डी डेली रूटीन डाइट और रिक्रिएशन। और बड़ों के लिए एक चार्ट है मेरा, दुनिया पागल है। 5 चार्ट उन्होंने मेरी सारी दवाई खत्म कर दी। धन्यवाद। और मैं वेलनेस कार्निवल्स का भी धन्यवाद करूंगा कि उन्होंने ऐसा प्रोग्राम रखा है कि जो 24 घंटे की सारी पत्ती है वो आ रही है। धन्यवाद।
I think this was great and आपका suggestion हम definitely सब लेंगे. Thank you so much. But thank you so much, Dr. Deepti, and thank you so much, Dr. Mansi, for your time. And this was fantastic and quite insightful. And thank you so much, everyone, for being here and giving us your time. Thank you. Take care.